Hey everyone, welcome to my corner where we deal with everything from politics to pop culture. Today we reflect on day two of the Madlanga Commission, where Lieutenant General Mkwanazi continued his testimony. Today the Commission peeled back another layer of the rot inside our criminal justice system. Lieutenant General Ntantla Mkwanazi's testimony made clear that what we are witnessing is not just a failure of oversight but a calculated erosion of accountability by way of excluding key actors, bending rules, and allowing impunity. What stood out for me was the way Advocate Silo pivoted from groundwork to pressure, and Mkwanazi, under her steady hand, delivered evidence implicating not only police and crime syndicates, but parliamentarians, municipal officials, and even senior prosecutors in a web of interference. You saw it in his exchanges with Elaine Zungu, also reported as Elaine Zungu Harrison, the KZN Director of Public Prosecutions. This was more than just a prosecutor voicing concern. It was evidence of a relationship finally built between police and the MPA in KZN, one anchored in mutual trust and shared mission via the political killings task team. For years, the police and the NPA in KwaZulu-Natal operated as parallel, mistrusting structures. The creation of the political killings task team changed that. Suddenly, the DPP and SAPS were working hand in glove, building watertight cases that could survive the dirty tricks of defense lawyers and intimidation of witnesses. This was not business as usual. It was a breakthrough, and yet neither Mkwanazi nor Zungu Harrison were informed when the PKTT was disbanded. Let that sink in. The very two officers responsible for investigations and prosecutions of political killings were cut out of the loop. Mkwanazi and Zungu Harrison were cut out. Mkwanazi said Zungu Harrison warned in writing that disbanding the PKTT risked derailing ongoing prosecutions, leaving dockets to gather dust or be redirected, witnesses to be intimidated or withdraw. Yet neither she nor Mkwanazi were officially informed when the disbandment occurred. That omission is not bureaucratic sloppiness. It's a mark of intentional exclusion. It reveals that the Minister of Police, Senzo Mkhulu, might see accountability not as necessary, but as an obstacle. That relationship with the NPA had been producing results. But what do you do when you quietly build something only to watch it be cut without notice? Cases stall, prosecutions are disrupted, suspects walk free, victims' families are left with silence. And the blue light scandal is perhaps the most vivid, concrete example of how privilege operates in our system. Mkwanazi named Vusi Cat Matlala. His private vehicles were registered improperly as municipal assets in Ekurhuleni, fitted with blue lights, using public resources, all facilitated by senior law enforcement, including Julius Mkwanazi of the Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department. Vehicles that the public would assume belong to the state, with all the symbolic force and practical protection that blue lights confer. He says Matala's vehicles were illegally made to look official. Internal whistleblowers complained, and when the EMPD's chief raised it, political heads purportedly shut down the inquiry and suspended the official who reported it. An IPID report exists, classified for now, which recommends disciplinary action against Major General Julius Mkhwanazi. This isn't a petty misuse of authority. It's an example of how crime bosses acquire state like power. To drive around with blue lights is to force recognition from law enforcement and civilians alike. It is to project authority and often to get untouchability. Traffic officers also came up. Joburg's Metropolitan Police Department officer Johannes Makhatle, close to businessman Katiso Molefe, was implicated. Molefe, accused in a high profile murder case, allegedly used Makhatle's help. Makhatle submitted an affidavit, was present at Molefe's December arrest, and responded to calls from Molefe. He fetched Molefe to inspect a vehicle that had been obstructing him. The catch? That vehicle turned out to be a police vehicle. That interaction symbolizes how thin the line between how thin the line becomes between suspect and collaborator when institutional trust is replaced by institutional capture. Mkhwanazi also took on the legislature. Fadiel Adams was accused of having unauthorized access to secret intelligence information, recklessly using it, and undermining ongoing investigations by repeating cases, duplicating complaints, and muddying oversight. What Mkhwanazi made clear is that Adams was in possession of intelligence he was not cleared to access. That is the core of the scandal, not the complaints themselves, but the fact that Adams had state sensitive information in his hands, information that should have never been available to an MP of his rank. In his rebuttals, Adams dances around the point, pretending that um, Mkhwanazi is the problem, or rather, his defensiveness is the problem. But the real question is this: who gave Fadiel Adams that information and why? He claims it was slipped in an envelope under his door. I don't know how much of that we are going to believe, but this reeks of a puppet operation. Adams plays the noisy front while someone else pulls the strings at the back. Alongside him, DA's Diane Kohler Barnard was named too. She publicly alleged, among other things, misuse of property belonging to crime intelligence. But Mkhwanazi says she's acting on information she shouldn't have. He suggests there is info being circulated beyond what is properly shared, and that these parliamentarians are not simply critics. They may be instruments in a larger political strategy to undermine crime intelligence and the institutions that check police power. Now, one moment in his recounting of the bail case, he paused. How does someone charged with multiple murders receive bail on charges so serious that they should have been held only to continue committing murders afterwards? In this particular case, he's referencing Fiso Ntuli. That story is repeated in surveillance of our courts right now. Bail turned into a revolving door for alleged murderers. Courtrooms becoming venues of politics as much as justice. The judiciary is not immune. It too is implicated. It too is implicated. When bail decisions ignore risk and allow suspects to remain free, the judiciary too is implicated. All of this traces back to the police political killings task team disbandment. The thread tying many of these allegations together. Mkwanazi built something, a system of collaboration with prosecutorial authority, intelligence, crime detection units, even with political actors who were willing. The PKTT's mandate had scope, effectiveness, and prosecutorial backing. Then, without information or informing those who were central to that success, it was disrupted. Minister Mkunu's decisions are key. The disbandment, the failure to inform the DPP, even the National Director of Public Prosecutions was not privy to this. The toleration of silence around misuse of power, all of those point to more than policy failure. They suggest a contempt for accountability. They suggest intentional undermining of institutions rather than mismanagement thereof. What Mkwanazi's testimony does is expose the shadow puppeteering. When actors who ought to be guardians of the law are instead strategically positioned to confuse it, to distort it, to delay it, when a traffic officer becomes a helper of an alleged hitman, when a businessman's vehicles are given blue lights, when prosecutors like Zungu Harrison learn through a letter, if at all, that their counterparts have been sidelined, that is not an error. That, ladies and gentlemen, is design. To accept this as growing pains is to betray the victims. To accept the phrase, we don't have all the information yet, while power structures continue exactly as before, is to validate their power. The Madlanga Commission must not merely shine light, it must hand over indictments of system failure. It must deliver remedial action. It must insist on consequences, not only for the criminals in our streets, but for the officials who shield them from visibility, from parliamentarians who claim oversight while leaking information, for ministers who disregard legal processes. Because if what was revealed today is not seen as a crisis, then what is? If we do not treat this as intentional capture, not just corruption, then we will only become complicit in normalizing impunity. Just a reminder, this was only day 2. Now, who knows what day 3 has in store for us? Now, drop me your thoughts in the comment sections. Like, subscribe, you know the drill, do what you will. I'll see you guys after day 3. Cheers.